Our protagonist opens his eyes as it pours. He is freezing and can't seem to move a muscle. He thinks that he may be dying as he has no control of any of his senses. But to his surprise, a beautiful girl appears before him. He is very confused when she picks him up by his armpits and says, "From today onward, you are now my pet." He's not sure how, but he notices that he is somehow moving with her now as she shelters him from the rain with an umbrella. He takes another look at her face and realizes he knows her. Karen is her classmate and the girl crush of his dreams. They stop at a house, and Karen gives him a big smile. He thinks she is so cute, with a gentle smile that puts him at ease. Her face suddenly goes blank as he hears another call out her name. Another beautiful figure appears, a more mature version of Karen. He catches them talking about how Karen rescued a puppy and starts getting jealous when she says that she's going to take a bath with it. He's extremely cold and feels like he's going to pass out, but feels a burst of energy when he finds himself in the bathroom and sees Karen's legs. He thinks to himself that he shouldn't look. He tries very hard not to look, but it's tough being a man in this situation. He eventually closes his eyes, but when she presses tightly against his legs, he opens them and can't believe what he is seeing through the mirror. She begins to wash him, but he is a ticklish boy, so he wags his tail and splashes her with water. She tells him to stop, but he can't, so she grabs his tail. She puts him down and begins to wash herself. He begins to freak out once again, having the impossible task to stop himself from looking. He doesn't want Karen to think that he is a pervert, so he conjures up all his might to look away. He feels like he is being tortured as he hears Karen scrub her incredible body. But when she holds him up in front of her, his eyes lock onto God's gift to man, and he knows that his fate has been sealed. His stats are too low to beat this final boss, so he gives in, staring profusely at her plot. He thinks she'll call him a pervert. He thinks she likes dogs a little too much and thinks that she is going to do something weird. She proceeds to do something weird. She begins to nibble on his nose and has no clue what the hell is going on. She begins to lick his nose like a lollipop, and at this point, I have no idea how I am supposed to feel about this anime anymore. Karen's mom tells her that dinner is ready, and she finally leaves. Her mother asks if he can do any tricks, and senses that Karen is a bit cold to her mother as she says that puppies can't do tricks. But contrary to what she just said to her mom, Karen goes into her room and says, "Sit." He realizes how big this moment is. If he obeys her command, he realizes that he'll be acknowledging that he is, in fact, a dog. After some thought, he goes for it. Karen is overjoyed. She continues with another command. As he looks at her hand, he is reminded of the beautiful girl from his class and the hand of the crush that he would never have had the opportunity of touching in his previous life. But somehow, he has ended up becoming that girl's dog. He wonders if this new life of his is a punishment from the gods, or if it is a blessing in disguise. The next day, Pochita tries to escape. His goal is to get to his house, thinking that he'll be able to find out how this happened. But Karen grabs him and tells him not to scratch the door. She tells him that they'll go on a walk. She puts the collar on while he thinks about how warm her hands feel. While outside, Karen suddenly stops and tells him how much fun she's having, when suddenly a ball comes out of nowhere, causing her to sit on him. Pochita is inside her skirt, but he can't see anything. He tries to push his way out with his nose, but unknowingly begins to engage in some plot development. She eventually stops him, calling him a bad boy and saying that her plot is not for him. When she puts him down, Karen notices that his nose is red. She looks around to make sure nobody is watching and goes for a lickety-lick, but she's interrupted by kids, wondering what this crazy lady is doing. They ask for the ball and Karen tells them off, saying that little dogs walk through this park and that they should be more careful. The kids apologize and Pochita realizes that Karen really only likes dogs. Pochita has to pee, which gets Karen all excited. She places him by a pole and tells him to go right ahead. He freaks out, embarrassed that he's taking a piss in public, while Karen takes out her phone. He refuses to let go of his last bit of humanity, determined to hold it in. Back at home, he suddenly has the urge to tell Karen about his feelings for her. He tries saying the words, "I love you," but lets out a bark instead. He gets sad, thinking that it sucks to be a dog, but he doesn't dwell for long as another girl comes in. She asks if Karen is ready to study, while Pochita wonders why Karen is friends with this bimbo. Karen says that they'll do math, and Neko Tani says she loves it when Karen talks dirty. Pochita mentions that Neko Tani is his neighbor and thinks that he should try to somehow leave with her to get home. He conjures a plan to get Neko Tani's favor and have her take him home with her. When Karen's mom asks for Karen's help, Pochita thinks that this is his chance. As soon as she leaves, Pochita goes for the kill. Unfortunately, Neko Tani is scared of dogs. She freaks out and tells him to stay away when suddenly a wild centipede appears. It crawls on Neko Tani and Pochita tries to warn her with a bark, but realizes that he's only scaring her even more. She runs away, but she trips, landing hard on Ernie. He sees the centipede crawl inside her clothes and realizes that time is of the essence. He reacts quickly, entering the dungeon, ready to face this final boss. But she turns over, causing him to unbuckle her plot armor. He recovers his footing and sees the centipede in his sights, and successfully slays it with a bite attack. But the terrain begins to shift again. The path forward is tighter, but he's willing to take his chances. He finally finds his way out of the plot dungeon, but suddenly gets hit by a friendly fire. Luckily, he lands without getting hurt, but sees that Ernie must be in pain. He feels bad and knows that he can't communicate his apology through words, but also knows that actions speak louder than words. He licks her boo-boo as well, while Neko Tani LOLs. Karen appears, glaring at the betrayal that she sees before her eyes. Neko Tani tells her that it's not what it looks like. Pochita freaks out as well while Karen steps forward, when suddenly, Karen bashes her foot on the wall. She takes off her sock and tells Pochita to hurry up and come. She puts out her bruised foot and calls out for Pochita again. He goes for it, thinking that she'll hurt herself again if he doesn't.
Old neck and legs, look at her.
Oh, I am.
Stop looking at her.
You just told me to look at her.
Ow!
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 Neko Tani has no clue what's going on. She covers her head as Karen hovers over her. Karen asks what she was doing with Pochita while she was gone. Neko Tani tells her that he went into her shirt, and Karen asks if he went there on his own. She tells her that he did, and Karen rages, telling her that she can't believe that she put her hands and body all over him. She says that she couldn't even do any of those things with him yet, while she lifts her dress. She says that change is now. She runs towards him and calls out his name. He runs away and avoids her by going through her legs. She sits down and suddenly shouts out. Neko Tani asks her what the actual hell she's doing. Karen ignores her and tells him again to come home. He knows she won't stop until she gets what she wants. He closes his eyes and steps forward while he thinks to himself, I'm going home. Sweet home with Karen. Karen boasts to Neko Tani that this is the bond that they have and that she'll never be able to stand between them. Pochita looks up and sees how happy she is. Neko Tani looks down and says that she can't believe what just happened, but is glad that Karen's bitch face is gone. Before she leaves, Neko Tani thanks Pochita for getting that centipede, as she apparently figured out that was Pochita's goal at some point. Later, Karen dresses up in a cat outfit. Karen crawls over to Pochita in her cosplay outfit. She gets down to his level, staring at him as he begins to get nervous. She puts out a mini device and asks him if he knows what it is. She says it's a device that translates dog language to Japanese. She says that she'll really know how Pochita feels now while she holds it in her mouth. She bends down and asks him if he loves her. She wags her tail, eager for him to respond. Pochita doubts it'll actually work, but he gives it a shot anyways and says, I love you. Karen checks the reader and immediately falls to the ground. Pochita sees that her face is in shock, crying and drooling as if she saw a ghost. He's curious, so he checks the device and reads, I ain't messing with humans who have a thing for puppies. It seems like Karen has recovered as she begins to wag her tail. He thinks that she's desperate to try and change his mind.
I got nothing to say to that dog. Why not? No. We have absolutely nothing in common.
Just then, Karen's mom comes in. Karen's mom asks, what you doing? Karen's mom asks what the ears and tail are for.
じゃあほどほどにね。
Karen tells Pochita that her mom totally bought the push-up thing, while Pochita thinks she needs to get those screws in her head tightened a bit. Karen tries again with the device, asking him if she's weird to be into stuff that other people wouldn't be into. Suddenly, Pochita is hit with a memory of the first time he spoke with Karen. A pink-haired girl calls him senpai and makes fun of him, telling him that he's a loner and that it's sad that she's the only person he talks to. Pochita sees her run off to another dude as he thinks to himself that he's living in a different world than the others at his school. He likes to keep to himself and likes to tend to plants, thinking that you don't have to talk to them to be friends with them. And that's when he meets Karen, and she asks him if he likes plants. He says that he does while he gets nervous that the prettiest girl in school is talking to him. He gets scared to look at her in the eye, so he looks at the plants when she tells him just because he's different doesn't mean he's weird. Ever since that day, Pochita has been crushing on Karen, but he's disappointed that he has been able to tell her that he likes her yet. He barks, telling her that she isn't weird, and it seems to have translated correctly this time. He tells himself that one day, he'll tell her himself as a human. Neko Tani calls Karen and tells her that she left her favorite pen at her place. She tells her that she should bring her pen and study at her place tomorrow. Later, Karen gets home from school and begins changing. Pochita closes his eyes like a gentleman, but he opens them when he hears Karen collapse on her bed. She crawls up some more and passes out immediately. Pochita thinks this is the perfect time to plan his escape. He overheard the conversation with Neko Tani, and since her place is right next to his, he'll make his escape then. He plans on using Karen's phone to order a package to come during their studies, and when Neko Tani opens the door, he'll make a run for it. Pochita puts his plan in motion as he walks to Karen's phone. He thinks she's so cute in her pajamas, but he realizes this is no time to be distracted. He gets to the phone, but realizes he needs her fingerprint. Just then, Karen grabs him in her sleep and hugs him tightly. He tries to escape, but her grip is too strong. He reaches out to grab the phone, but it's too far. He knows she's very ticklish, so he begins to lick her fingers, and she begins to drool as it seems like she's dreaming about something delicious. Suddenly, she makes a V shape with her hands, and if you weren't sure before, now you know. Except our protagonist has no goddamn clue. He says quote-unquote, 2 hands, 1 tongue. Let me show you how talented my tongue is. He increases the velocity, and after soaking her hand in his saliva, she finally lets him go. He pats himself on the back and says to himself, I think I got her off. Yes, you did, Pochita. You most definitely got her off, in more ways than one. He successfully drags the phone to her finger, but he is taken aback when he sees a picture of the time he lost his dignity. But he can't stop now. He buys a teddy bear and sets it to arrive at the correct time. They get to Neko Tani's house. Pochita looks to his house and realizes he'll need to jump over the rail to get to his bedroom balcony. Neko Tani opens the door and tells them to come in. Pochita sees that Neko Tani is still scared of dogs and wonders why she asked Karen to bring him in the first place. The girls decide to play on their Switch before studying, so he thinks that this is a good opportunity to make a run for it. But Karen puts out her foot, seemingly searching for him. She pokes around with her foot, and he realizes that he forgot to consider Karen's crazy obsession over him. But he won't let this chance go. He's about to make a run for it, when suddenly Karen grabs his tail and asks him where he thinks he's going. She strokes his tail like a joystick and tells him that he should know better than to run off on his own. But her grip is loose, and he finds an opening to dash away. Neko Tani blocks the door, but he knows she's got the puppy jitters, so he uses his bark ability. It's super effective as she falls to the ground and begins to shiver in fear. He uses bark again with a combo leap attack, landing a critical hit on her belly. She cradles up and says she can't take it. No more, no more, she says, while sweating up a storm. The final boss approaches, asking if they're flirting behind her back again. Neko Tani steps aside as Karen paralyzes Pochita with her deathly glare when suddenly the doorbell rings. The package has arrived as expected, and Pochita is back in business. He makes a run for it. He successfully makes it past the door. He goes for the rail next, but realizes he won't make the jump. Neko Tani chases after him, but he jukes her by jumping off the rail. He uses bark, paralyzing her once again. He remembers back when he went into her shirt. She called him a dirty dog and launched him pretty high up in the air. So he decides to do the dirty and uses a combolic attack on her belly. She's resisting, so he ups the ante and begins to lick one of her buttons. Her plot armor is a legendary drop, mitigating the effectiveness of his attack, so he knows what he must do. He penetrates her defense, navigating past her plot armor. Mission complete, and an impeccable landing. He looks inside his room and is surprised to see a strange figure. He sees her clearly now and realizes that she's Usagi, the girl who makes fun of him for being a loner. She thought she saw something in the balcony, but Pochita hides in her dress just in time. He wonders why Usagi is in her room. Suddenly, Usagi says out loud that she's going to snoop around Senpai's room. She wonders if he hides any dirty magazines under his bed. She reaches out and finds a heart-shaped chocolate box. Usagi calls Senpai stupid, yelling that she can't believe he accepted chocolate from some other girl. She rips it up and starts walking toward his desk while Pochita follows. She talks to herself again, wondering where Senpai disappeared to. She says that everyone is worried and begins to cry. She thinks something bad happened to him and says that this is why she made fun of him, saying that he should have made more friends to have his back during these type of situations. Just then, Usagi lifts her dress and sits on the desk as she begins to develop her own plot. She closes her eyes and thinks about Senpai while utilizing the geometry of the hard, wooden corner to build her own character. Pochita can't believe what's going on as he hears Usagi call out his name. She begins to sweat while accelerating her character development. Her plot development finally ends as Pochita hears his mom call out Usagi. His mom enters the room and tells her that she should head out soon. Pochita decides to head out with her, realizing that being home won't help him get back to becoming a human again. While walking, Usagi and Pochita are splashed with water, causing Usagi to look down into her plot dungeon to see Pochita staring back up at her. He immediately dashes out. Usagi takes a good look at him and says that he reminds her of Senpai. She pets him and tells him that she's decided to take him home as her pet. Just then, he sees Karen and Nekotani running in the rain, but they don't see him as Usagi cradles him away from sight. He's now at her home when suddenly she collapses on the floor. He touches her head and realizes that she's burning up. He acts quickly, realizing that he should first get her out of her wet clothes. He doesn't know how he'll get her plot armor off, but he finds an opening after she rolls over and calls out Senpai even in her feverish state. She says she's tired from watering his plants and looking for him this whole time. She also says she's been so worried that she can't sleep at night. She calls out Senpai again while he goes to unbuckle her plot armor. She keeps talking to herself, picking herself up while asking why Senpai doesn't get jealous when she talks to other boys. She begins to cry, yelling that she wants him to be jealous. He succeeds in his task. He finally gets that she has the hots for him, but realizes that he needs to focus up. He goes for the triangle plot armor and eventually navigates his way to completing his mission. He looks around her room and finds something for her to wear. Next, he looks at her and wonders how he's going to get her clothes on while she's plopped on the floor like that. He realizes it'll be a tough task, so he decides to just cover her up to keep her warm for starters. He then decides to put on her triangle plot armor while she continues to fantasize about Senpai, telling him that she loves him. He hears everything she's saying, but is determined to see this quest through as he successfully equips her dry plot armor. Mission complete. Usagi stops shivering, and Pochita pats himself on the back for a job well done. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. He hears Karen and Nekotani's voice. They're surprised that the door is open and decide to help themselves in. They see Usagi on the floor. Karen steps forward, while Usagi opens her eyes. Pochita feels the intensity in the air as he thinks that he will never forget this moment. The moment when the girl in love with his human form and the girl in love with his dog form met face to face. Pochita gets another flashback to when he was a human. A small, strange girl in a lab coat greets him and hands over a heart-shaped chocolate box, telling him that it's a Valentine's gift from Karen. At home, Pochita gets excited thinking that Karen has a crush on him, but questions why she asked another girl to give him the chocolate box. He doesn't dwell for too long before he takes a bite. After putting the rest away under his bed for later, Pochita feels a dizziness sensation and faints. He realizes now that he was set up by the lab coat girl. Back to the present, Pochita wakes up from his dream and finds himself in Usagi's room along with Karen and Neko Tani. Neko Tani asks Karen how she knew that Pochita was in Usagi's house, to which Karen replies that she put a tracker on him. Neko Tani tells her that she's got a screw loose in her head, while Pochita panics, frantically trying to figure out where the tracker is. Usagi butts in, thanking Karen and Neko Tani for taking care of her while she was ill, but sternly confirms that Pochita, who she refers to as Senpai, is her dog. Pochita is shocked, while Karen asks Usagi what gives her the right to say that when she knows nothing about Pochita. She tells Usagi that Pochita has 19 million hairs on his furry body, 11 million of which are brown. She says his tongue is 6.2 millimeters long, and when you lick his nose, his tail swishes 8 wags per second. Neko Tani's virgin years are violated by Karen's Pochita obsession. Usagi interjects on her rant, asking if Karen has any proof that Pochita is hers, to which Karen responds that if she commands, "Come home," Pochita will run into her skirt. But Usagi tells Karen that he does dirty stuff like that with her too, telling her how he took off her clothes not too long before Karen got to her house, which causes another screw to loosen in Karen's head. Karen picks up Pochita and tells Usagi that it doesn't change the fact that Pochita is her dog. Usagi gets up and grabs Pochita, placing the buns on the hot dog and stating that Pochita belongs to her. The two go back and forth until Neko Tani breaks up the cat fight and tells them to have a contest to see who owns Pochita. She calls it the house battle, stating that whoever's house Pochita goes up to or into wins. Pochita can't believe that they are serious about this. Karen tells him to come home. Home sweet home to Karen. Usagi tells Senpai to come this way and gives him a cute wink. Unfortunately for Usagi, Pochita has had a crush on Karen for a while. He heads to Sweet Home, Alabama, as Usagi realizes Senpai is slipping away from her grasp. She knows something must be done, or she'll lose him forever, so she grabs a dog bone treat and slips it into her house. Pochita suddenly feels his doggy sensation kick in as he walks towards the treat. Karen is shocked at the sudden change in direction, and Usagi makes a sly remark that she's going to win, causing Karen to tear up. Karen refuses to accept defeat as she reaches out with her legs to change Pochita's direction, but her efforts are thwarted by Usagi's dynamite leg play. An intense battle occurs, Dragon Ball Z style. Pochita watches in awe, but shifts his attention once again to the dog bone treat, when suddenly, Usagi sees her opening to claim her prize. She begins to celebrate with Pochita up in the air when he looks down and notices how heartbroken Karen is. Usagi continues to celebrate when suddenly, the dog bone treat slips out of her house. Neko Tani picks it up and questions if Usagi used it like the naughty girl that she is and cheated to win the contest. Convinced by the overwhelming evidence, Neko Tani grabs Pochita and claims that Karen wins by default. Usagi apologizes for cheating but boldly states that this isn't over. Karen says that Usagi will never get her Pochita, and the two stare off, shooting lightning bolts at each other with their eyes. The next day, as Karen gets ready to head to school, Pochita thinks back to the latest dream he had about the lab coat girl and realizes that he needs Karen to bring him to school so that he can find her and get her to turn him back to normal. Pochita tries to sneak into Karen's bag, but Karen was watching. She tells him that pets aren't allowed at school, so Pochita begins to beg like the cute puppy that he is. Karen blushes, thinking whatever thoughts that pop up in her strange brain. She continues to blush while she heads out, telling him that he can beg all he wants, but that she won't give in. But she does in fact give in, as we see the door open behind her. The two make it to the school, and Pochita sees a familiar sight. During class, Pochita thinks it's the best time to make a run for it while Karen is busy taking notes. But he looks up to see that Karen's eyes are glued onto him. Back at homeroom, Karen and her class are discussing what they'd like to do for the school festival. Just then, Pochita spots the lab coat girl walking by the classroom. For some reason, Pochita thinks it's a good idea to jump out of the bag and lick Karen's armpits, seemingly hoping to distract the class and Karen while he makes a run for it. But this 50 IQ plan backfires as the girls immediately shift their attention to the random, cute dog that appeared out of nowhere. The lab coat girl is getting away, so Pochita acts quickly, using a special technique, dash through the legs. He successfully makes it past the second girl, but his efforts are thwarted by the third as she cradles him in her plot. Pochita misses his chance as the lab coat girl walks away and realizes that he needs Karen to bring him back to school again another day to track her down. So he thinks of a brilliant plan to act all cute for the crowd with the hopes of getting the class to think of doing a dog cafe for the school festival. The plan works as the girls comment on how cute Pochita is as they caress his belly. Karen looks on and coldly asks Pochita if he lets any girl do that kind of stuff to him. Pochita thinks he's in for a bit of a spanking when he gets back home with Karen, when finally a girl catches on and suggests the class to do a dog cafe as Pochita planned. The teacher gives the approval and Pochita is back in business. A girl asks whose dog this is, when suddenly Karen shouts out,
Chichi! Chichi!
If you're wondering what or why Karen is telling Pochita, beg for mommy, your guess is as good as mine. Pochita also has no clue why Karen is embarrassing herself in front of the class, so he decides to do a foot stand on 2 feet with his cute paws to the crowd, causing the girls to cheer and shifting the attention away from the awkward Karen. The girls are now ecstatic by the idea of doing a dog cafe, while we catch a glimpse of Usagi looking on like a creepy pervert. The next day, the class bring all their dogs to school while they prepare for the festival. Neko Tani catches Karen working hard on putting together some decorations when she notices that Pochita is with her and gets the puppy jitters once again. She accidentally steps on glue, falling hard on the floor and getting glue plot all over her clothes. Karen tells her to sit tight with Pochita while she gets something to get the glue off. Suddenly, more dogs approach, barking towards Neko Tani's direction. Neko Tani's class is doing a hot dog stand for the festival, so she smells like pork. Neko Tani freaks out, stepping on the glue, spewing out some more glue plot, and falling on Pochita. She freaks out some more while Pochita's paws are stuck on Neko Tani's skirt. The dogs are getting more riled up by the immoral scene and finally attack, causing Neko Tani to strip her skirt so that she can make a run for it. Neko Tani runs through the halls with her triangle plot armor on full display, when suddenly she trips. Pochita tries to liberate himself while Neko Tani is briefly unconscious. Neko Tani finally wakes up when she hears some boys approaching. Pochita barks at Neko Tani to hide behind a corner. After the boys pass her by without noticing, Neko Tani thanks Pochita for saving her again, telling him that he's a smart cookie. She tells him that he reminds her of the old Pochita, Karen's first dog. Neko Tani says that the three of them played a lot together until the first Pochita died 3 years ago. She mentions that Karen hasn't smiled since she lost the old Pochita, but that she's shown so much more emotion since he came along. Neko Tani begins to cry, sad that she has never been able to make Karen laugh the way the dogs do. But she brushes it off, laughing at the fact that she just had a full conversation with a dog. She then has a realization that Pochita doesn't really feel like a dog. And finally, for the first time, one of these weird girls, arguably the most unintelligent one of the three, realizes that Pochita may actually be a real human inside of a dog. Pochita thinks the gig is up, but fortunately for him, the other dogs interrupt the moment, causing Neko Tani to streak through the halls once again. Pochita realizes he needs to do something about Neko Tani smelling like a sausage party, or the dogs will continue to chase her around. He thinks of a plan to get her to dip into the pool to remove the scent. He decides to nibble on her ears to guide her to the school's swimming pool. Left ear makes her go right, and the right ear makes her go left. The plan works to perfection as she runs straight into the pool. Her top plot armor comes off, but there is only one dog here that's interested in such things as the other dogs walk away. Neko Tani thanks Pochita once again for saving her, while Pochita continues to stare at her plot. Karen is cold as ever, saying that she went to get a towel to wipe some glue off, and not a towel for a recreational swimmer. Neko Tani tells her that shit got kind of wild while she was gone. Karen angrily asks why Pochita is also wet, and Neko Tani tells her to calm her watermelons down. Karen drops the subject and tells Neko Tani to change into her gym clothes so she doesn't catch a cold. Neko Tani begins to change while Pochita watches on. Pochita realizes his self-control in these situations are beginning to loosen up. Karen grabs his wagging tail, causing Pochita to feel like a pervert. Karen then dries Neko Tani's hair, while Neko Tani enjoys every moment of it. Later, Karen continues to help with her class festival preparations, when suddenly, Usagi makes an entrance in a bunny outfit. Usagi greets Pochita as she looks down at him, calling him senpai as usual. Neko Tani asks why Usagi is wearing a bunny outfit, and Usagi replies that her class is doing a bunny cafe. She said she decided to visit Karen's class since senpai is a little pervert, and that she figured he'd want to see her in this cute outfit. Karen confirms that Pochita loves to look at big watermelons, venture into a girl's plot dungeon, and engage in other plot-filled activities. Usagi agrees and suddenly asks Karen if she would like to duel. Usagi says if her class raises more money than Karen's, Usagi wins and gets one whole day to do whatever she wants with senpai. Karen agrees in the condition that if she wins, Usagi will never bother her Pochita ever again. Lightning strikes between these two crazy girls as they get ready for another battle. The school festival finally kicks off. Pochita is caught catching a peek at Karen's plot armor as she stands cutely in her dog-made outfit. She blushes as Karen tells Pochita to stop staring. Come lunchtime, Pochita notices that there aren't as many guests. Karen's classmate rushes in and tells the class that the Bunny Cafe is stealing all of their customers. But in reality, stealing is an extreme word in this scenario since all they're doing is putting up better thumbnails that attract a larger audience. The girls are attracted to the cute, free critters staring back up at them, while the boys are attracted to the more simpler things in life. All seems hopeless as Karen and her classmates look like they are about to accept their fate. But Karen speaks up and thinks of an idea from her screw-loose brain. She says that Pochita's tongue is really rough and says it feels really good when he licks your feet. So she asks her classmates, why don't we give Doggy foot baths? Just then, Usagi makes a visit and rubs it into Karen, telling her that she might as well collect her prize now for their bet. Surprisingly, Karen calmly tells her guests to follow her. She calls Usagi mistress and tells her to have a seat. Usagi plays along, wondering what this is all about, when suddenly, Pochita licks her feet. Usagi is surprised, calling out senpai, as Karen tells her to please stay seated. Pochita continues his quest, stroking back and forth with a vicious swing. She begins to say things that are too graphic for this video, as Pochita increases the velocity of his strongest technique. She calls out senpai's name, until finally, the final boss is defeated. The plan is in full effect and effective at drawing more customers, since all the girls at this school are freaking weird. Eventually, the lab coat girl makes a visit. She sits down and orders a coffee heavy on the sugar. She looks down at Pochita with an evil grin and orders him to get to licking. Karen comes by with the coffee when suddenly, the lab coat girl asks Karen a hypothetical question. She asks if her dog was actually a human in a dog's body, how would she feel about him? Karen says it's not possible, but the lab coat girl says anything's possible, just like Karen's strangely romantic obsession over dogs. Pochita gets angry that she's toying with Karen, so he goes on the offensive, striking the most sensitive area of her body. He's leveled up from utilizing his tongue technique, so Pochita is confident that he'll win this battle. But her resistance stats seem to be very high as she takes a sip of her coffee. Pochita increases the intensity, and finally she cracks, telling Karen that she understands her screw-loose brain a little bit more. And with that, the lab coat girl decides to take her leave. Karen seems exhausted by the encounter for some reason. Pochita gets angry once again and decides to chase after the girl. He chases her across the entire school until they reach the old school building. As he enters the building, Pochita sees a light through an inconspicuous door. He enters to find her waiting for him, sitting on top of a table as she introduces herself as Inari. Inari congratulates Pochita for taking 5,113,927 seconds to get to this very moment since he has turned into a dog. The screens behind her turn on, revealing that she's been watching Pochita this entire time as she has cameras set up all over Karen's house. Inari says Pochita deserves an award, so she tells him that she'll reveal a super easy way for him to turn back into a human again. Before that though, she tells him to bite down on the ball gag. Inari tells him to let his guard down, telling him that she's not into dogs like Karen is. She puts the device on Pochita and asks him if he liked her little Valentine's Day gift and if he's enjoying his new life as a dog. Pochita shouts that he hasn't and realizes that he just spoke out loud, confirming that the ball gag is actually a doggy translator. Inari mentions that the doggy lingus that Karen had was a prototype invention of hers and that the ball gag is her latest invention. Inari then puts up more videos of Pochita being a pervert and tells him that she couldn't have chosen a better guinea pig for her experiment. She shows all the times when Pochita entered the plot dungeon and calls him a piece of work for being so creative in his adventures. Pochita denies his perverse acts, commenting that they all had reasons that were justified. But Inari tells him to look carefully at his body language, telling him to stop making excuses for how he really feels. She asks him if he really wants to throw away this blessed life as a dog to go back to his boring human life. But without question, Pochita responds that he does, determined to tell Karen that he loves her in his human form. Suddenly, Inari begins to chant the word She bats him in the head and tells him that he really is the perfect guinea pig after all. And with that, she finally tells him that all he needs to do to turn human again is to give Karen a kiss. But not just any kiss. He has to use enough tongue to ingest body fluid containing another person's DNA. She tells him that he can use her south mouth if he really wanted to as well. Pochita asks why she turned him into a dog in the first place, but she says her lips are sealed, saying that telling him right now would ruin her experiment. She tells him not to overthink it and to just stick his tongue out the cute doggy mouth of his and use it to explore the warm wet mouth of the girl he gets a hard-on for. She continues to be degrading, calling both him and Karen her little guinea pigs, and telling Pochita that taking Karen's first kiss away is a small price to pay for her experiment. Suddenly, Pochita gets pissed off by this comment, raged by the fact that Inari is treating Karen like nothing more than a dog for the sake of her experiment. Pochita shouts that he won't do it, telling Inari that he won't take her first kiss as a dog. Inari shows a villainous smile as Pochita tells her that he's outies. He breaks the ball gag communicator and makes his exit with his doggy chin held up high. Pochita meets up with Karen, and the two head home together as Pochita continues his adventures, living the good life as Karen's dog. The next day, Karen declares that she will care for Pochita like her own baby. She hugs him tightly in her buns, and then tells Neko Tani to help a girl out, commanding Neko Tani to share her buns with Pochita as well. Karen's mom tells the two that they have a visitor. Usagi walks in to surprisingly find Karen topless. Karen declares that she will begin to breastfeed Pochita as she unequips her plot armor. Usagi refuses to lose this battle. She removes her top as well, prepared to do whatever crazy thing Karen is about to do. Neko Tani grabs Pochita away, calling both of them nuts for being main characters of this twisted anime, when suddenly, Usagi uses her instant removal technique on Neko Tani. And if you made it this far, I hope you weren't expecting anything more out of this plot-filled conclusion. The last episode ends with these three crazy girls, topless, in front of our main protagonist. Sometime later, Pochita finds himself in Karen's bathroom, watching Karen unequip her plot armor. She weighs herself and realizes that she's been gaining some weight. So she decides to bring Pochita with her to the public swimming pool to get some exercise. At the pool, Pochita realizes that they are at a dog pool where dogs can swim with their owners. Pochita checks out Karen and thinks that she looks gorgeous in her bikini. Neko Tani tells Karen she should have said that there were going to be dogs, to which Karen replies that she never invited her in the first place. Neko Tani sees another dog in the pool, so she decides to just watch. Karen calls for Pochita, so Pochita jumps in. Karen holds him up, while a dog barks at Neko Tani. Karen lets go of Pochita, and Pochita begins to sink. He realizes he can't swim, and ends up almost drowning. He wakes up on Karen's lap, and thinks it's awesome being on Karen's lap. Karen decides to do some sit-ups, and Neko Tani says she'll join in. Pochita stares at Neko Tani and realizes she has incredible form. He looks towards Karen and sees that she's struggling. Pochita decides to help her out and places his cute paws on her feet for support. Karen finds it much easier now and goes at a rapid pace. The girls move on to squats, and Pochita notices that Neko Tani makes it look easy. Just then, a dog begins to bark, causing Neko Tani to preemptively run, which in turn causes the dog to chase her. It chases her around some more, while Karen looks down at Pochita. She gets a spark of motivation as Karen begins her squats. After, Karen teaches Pochita how to swim and compliments him for learning so quickly. Suddenly, the pair hear a dog bark in the distance and see that Neko Tani is getting chased by another dog. She trips and falls into the pool next to Karen and Pochita. Neko Tani comes out of the water, realizes that her top is off as well, and begins to freak out. She looks around for her top and sees that Karen is in the same boat. Pochita doesn't want others to see Karen's plot, so he acts quickly. He successfully grabs her armor while Karen finds Neko Tani's armor. Neko Tani puts hers on while Pochita swims towards Karen. Karen gets really happy that her Pochita was looking out for her and hugs him tightly in her buns. The other dog owner apologizes for the trouble while the dog lets out another bark. At home, Karen weighs herself and is happy to find that she accomplished her goal. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode.